I never thought I'd have to choose between family loyalty and self-respect until my 30th birthday. My parents canceled my long-planned celebration with just 24 hours' notice because my sister Brooke needed our family home for a date with a wealthy potential boyfriend. When I confronted them, they waved away my feelings with dismissive laughter. "You're an adult now. Birthdays aren't important at your age," my father said while my mother nodded. Little did they know that, as the family's unofficial financial manager who helped them refinance their underwater mortgage last year, I had access to override their automatic payment system. Sometimes karma needs a little push. My name is Kimberly. I'm 30 years old and work as a financial analyst at a respected firm in downtown Seattle. On paper, my life looks successful. I have a stable career, a comfortable apartment, and enough savings to feel secure. But beneath that polished surface lies a lifetime of emotional neglect from the people who should have been my biggest supporters. My parents, Thomas and Diane Walker, have always made it clear that my younger sister Brooke was the golden child of our family. 4 years younger than me, Brooke has coasted through life on her looks and charm, while I was the responsible one who worked hard for everything I achieved. The contrast in how we were treated wasn't subtle. It was a family dynamic so entrenched that most of the time I accepted it as normal, even as it quietly hurt me. Last year, when the housing market crashed and interest rates spiked, my parents found themselves in serious financial trouble. Their adjustable rate mortgage had ballooned to payments they couldn't afford. Despite years of feeling like an afterthought in their lives, I stepped in to help. I spent weeks researching refinance options, negotiating with lenders, and ultimately secured them a fixed rate that saved their home. I even set up all their online banking and payment systems since technology baffled them. "We don't know what we'd do without you, Kimberly," my mother had said, squeezing my hand with what seemed like genuine gratitude. Those rare moments of appreciation were what I lived for, the crumbs of parental love I collected and treasured. They were still financially unstable cutting corners where they could, while maintaining appearances in their suburban neighborhood. The house needed repairs they couldn't afford, but heaven forbid the neighbors suspect anything was amiss with the Walkers. Image had always been everything to my parents. When they promised to host a special celebration for my 30th birthday, I was genuinely surprised and touched. My birthdays had typically been afterthoughts, often rescheduled or minimized to accommodate Brooke's activities or desires. But turning 30 seemed to have registered as significant even to them. "We want to do this for you, sweetheart," my mother said 6 weeks before the big day. "You've done so much for us, and we haven't always shown our appreciation the way we should." Those words meant everything to me. I allowed myself to get excited to believe this might mark a turning point in our relationship. I took the day off work, something I rarely did. I bought a new dress that cost more than I would typically spend. I invited my closest friends, promising them an intimate but special gathering. I even found myself reminiscing about childhood birthdays that never quite lived up to expectations. My 10th birthday party canceled because Brooke had a dance recital. My 16th overshadowed by Brooke's middle school graduation celebration the same weekend. My 21st spent helping Brooke through a breakup, rather than going out with friends as planned. Perhaps this milestone birthday would be different. Perhaps finally I would be the priority. The day before my birthday, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off some specialty cheeses I'd purchased for the event. I let myself in using my key, calling out but receiving no answer. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard voices from the dining room. Laughter. My sister's distinctive giggle, followed by my mother's conspiratorial tone. "She'll get over it," my mother was saying. "Kimberly always does." "Carson's family is way more important than some birthday party," Brooke replied. "Besides, she can celebrate anywhere. This could be my future we're talking about." I froze in the hallway, the fancy cheese bag dangling from my suddenly numb fingers. "Your father already told her we're canceling," my mother continued. "He's picking up that expensive Cabernet right now. Nothing but the best for our potential future son-in-law." They laughed again, and in that moment something inside me that had bent countless times over decades finally broke. They weren't just canceling my birthday party. They were laughing about it, planning to impress Brooke's date with the celebration that should have been mine. The realization felt like ice water in my veins. I had built my entire life around being the responsible, understanding daughter, the one who helped, who never complained, who accepted less because that's just how things were in our family. Standing there in that hallway, hearing them laugh about disappointing me yet again, I realized how little that role had earned me, how little they valued me, or my feelings. And in that crystallizing moment of clarity, something shifted inside me. A lifetime of swallowed hurt congealed into a hard knot of resolve. If they wanted to cancel something important to me without a second thought, perhaps it was time they experienced what that felt like. I didn't confront them immediately. Instead, I silently returned the cheese to my car and drove home, my mind racing. The next morning, my actual birthday, I called my mother. "Hi, Mom. I'm just confirming what time I should arrive tonight." There was an awkward pause before my mother cleared her throat. "Oh, honey, didn't your father call you yesterday? We need to postpone your birthday gathering." The casual way she said it, as if canceling my milestone birthday celebration with less than 24 hours' notice was a minor scheduling hiccup, made my blood boil. But I kept my voice level. "He mentioned something, but I assumed there was a misunderstanding. We've been planning this for weeks. My friends have arranged their schedules. I've purchased food." "Well, something important came up with Brooke," my mother said, her voice taking on that familiar defensive tone whenever Brooke's priorities were questioned. "Her new boyfriend Carson wants to bring his parents over to meet us, and tonight is the only night that works for them." And this came up suddenly, with no notice. I pressed. "These things happen, Kimberly. Carson comes from the Millington family. You know, the real estate developers. This could be a very advantageous connection for the whole family." The implications were clear. My sister's potential relationship with someone wealthy trumped any commitment made to me. I thought about hanging up, but decided to push further. "So where am I supposed to host my birthday now? My apartment isn't big enough for all the guests." "You could reserve a restaurant," my father's voice suddenly interjected. He must have picked up another extension. "That's what adults do for birthdays anyway, Kimberly. They don't have parties at their parents' house." "A restaurant," I repeated, with less than 24 hours' notice on a Friday night. "Don't be dramatic," my father said. "Act like an adult. Brooke has a chance at a real future here with this boy. And I don't have a future worth considering. My feelings don't matter." "Of course they matter," my mother interjected, but the hollowness in her voice told me everything. "We'll celebrate next weekend instead. It'll be just as special." I almost laughed at the empty promise. Next weekend would bring another excuse, another reason why Brooke's needs superseded mine. It always had. "I've already bought food for tonight. I've already invited people." "Take the food to a restaurant," my father said impatiently. "Or have it at your place. Figure it out, Kimberly. You're 30 years old, for crying out loud." The door chime rang in the background of their house, and I heard Brooke's voice calling out a greeting. "We need to go," my mother said quickly. "Brooke's here to help us prepare for tonight. We'll make it up to you, honey." Before I could respond, Brooke had apparently taken the phone. "Happy birthday, sis," she said with artificial cheer. "Sorry about the party, but you understand, right? Carson is really important to me. His family has connections that could help all of us." "I understand perfectly," I said, surprised by the calm in my voice despite the rage building inside me. "I understand that once again what's important to me comes second to what's important to you." "Don't be like that," Brooke said with a sigh. "It's just a birthday. You have one every year. This is my future we're talking about." "What about the money I already spent on food and drinks?" I asked. There was a pause, then Brooke laughed uncomfortably. "Yeah, about that. Mom and Dad actually borrowed from your party budget to get some fancy wine and cheese for tonight. They figured since your party was canceled anyway, they'd repurpose it." What? The calm facade I'd been maintaining began to crack. "Don't worry, they'll pay you back," Brooke said dismissively. "Oh, and is it okay if we use the decorations you brought over yesterday? The blue and silver ones would look amazing with the dining room colors, and since you're not using them anyway." I felt physically ill. Not only had they canceled my celebration, but they were literally taking the food, drinks, and decorations I had purchased to create a special atmosphere for Brooke's date night. "Let me talk to Mom or Dad," I said, my voice tight. After some muffled conversation, my father came on the line. "What is it, Kimberly? We're busy here." "Brooke says you used my birthday money for your dinner tonight. Is that true?" He cleared his throat. "We borrowed from the joint account. We'll replace it next week." The joint account I set up for household expenses and mortgage payments. not for fancy wine for Brooke's date. Don't be petty, Kimberly. This dinner could change all our fortunes if it goes well. Carson's family has connections we need. How much did you take? There was a pause. Just a few hundred. Nothing we can't pay back once this business deal I'm working on comes through. I logged into the account from my phone, while still on the call scanning recent transactions. There it was, $800 at a specialty wine shop yesterday afternoon. $800 is not a few hundred, Dad. That's almost the entire budget we set aside for household expenses this month, including the mortgage payment. Keep your voice down, he hissed. Brooke doesn't need to know about our financial situation, and neither does Carson's family. We'll figure it out. Like you've been figuring it out for the past year while I bail you out repeatedly. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. I don't have time for this now, my father snapped. We have guests coming. We'll discuss this next week. What am I supposed to tell my friends who are expecting a party tonight? Tell them plans changed. You're an adult, Kimberly. Handle it like one. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking with a mixture of hurt and fury. After everything I'd done for them, after all the times I'd put their needs first, they couldn't give me this one day. Instead, they stole from funds I had helped establish to ensure their financial stability. As I sent out apologetic texts to my friends explaining the last-minute cancellation, something hardened inside me. For years I'd been the family fixer, the responsible one who made sacrifices and solved problems. I'd helped them restructure their debt, set up payment systems, and avoid financial ruin. Perhaps it was time they learned what life would be like without my constant assistance. Perhaps it was time they faced the consequences of their choices. My 30th birthday passed with a whimper rather than the bang I'd hoped for. A few friends insisted on taking me out for drinks, but their last-minute pity gathering only emphasized how thoroughly my family had dismissed my special day. I smiled through it, thanked them for their efforts, but excused myself early, claiming fatigue. Back in my apartment alone on what should have been a milestone celebration, my phone chimed with a text message. It was from Brooke, sending photos of her evening with Carson and his family. The dining room table was set beautifully with my blue and silver decorations. The specialty cheeses I'd selected were artfully arranged on the serving board I'd gifted my mother last Christmas. Dinner, going amazing. Brooke's text read, Carson's parents love me. Thanks for understanding about the party. You're the best big sis. I stared at the images, noting the expensive wine bottles, the elaborate flower arrangement that must have cost hundreds, the new dress my sister was wearing, that still had its designer tags partially visible in one photo. All while my parents claimed financial hardship and borrowed from essential expense accounts. Something didn't add up. I opened my laptop and logged into the family financial portal I'd created to help manage their accounts. Initially, I'd set it up to organize their mortgage refinancing, but had maintained it to help them stay on track with payments and budgeting. They had given me authorization to oversee and sometimes handle their finances during their hardest period last year, and neither of us had changed those permissions. What I discovered made my stomach clench. Despite my careful budget planning and payment scheduling, they had missed 2 mortgage payments already. The bank had sent multiple warning notices to their email, which was linked to the account. Notices they had apparently ignored, while continuing to spend beyond their means. I dug deeper, scanning through transaction histories with growing disbelief. Expensive restaurants, shopping sprees at high-end boutiques, a weekend getaway to a vineyard resort last month that they certainly hadn't mentioned to me. And most shocking of all, a down payment on a new car for Brooke just 6 weeks ago when they had told me they couldn't afford basic house repairs. They had been lying to me all while I continued managing their accounts, setting up payment schedules, and believing their claims of financial struggle. The betrayal cut deep, but the financial irresponsibility was what truly alarmed me. They were on a path to losing their house, and they seemed completely unconcerned. I was about to log out when a document in their file storage caught my eye. It was recent, dated just 3 weeks ago, with a file name I didn't recognize. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a personal loan agreement for $40,000 from a high-interest lender known for predatory practices. The kind of lender I had specifically warned them against during the refinancing process. And there, listed as a personal reference and co-signed guarantor, was my name. My signature was at the bottom of the document, a signature I had never provided. They had forged my name on a loan document, potentially making me liable for their debt. The room seemed to spin around me as the implications sank in. This wasn't just disrespect or favoritism anymore. This was fraud. They had committed identity theft against their own daughter. I grabbed my phone and called Amanda, my friend, who worked as a paralegal at a law firm specializing in financial crimes. Despite the late hours, she answered, probably assuming I was calling about my birthday gathering. "Happy birthday! How was the family party?" she asked cheerfully. "It didn't happen," I said tersely. "Listen, I need legal advice. It's serious." The levity in her voice disappeared immediately. "What's going on, Kim?" "My parents forged my signature on a loan document. They listed me as a guarantor without my knowledge or consent. What do I need to do to protect myself?" "Jesus," Amanda breathed. "That's identity fraud. Even between family members." "Are you sure?" "I'm looking at the document right now. It's not my signature, Amanda. They copied it from somewhere and put it on this loan agreement." There was a pause as she processed this. "You have options, but none of them are great. You can file a police report for identity theft, which would protect you financially but would likely result in criminal charges against your parents. Or you can try to handle it outside the legal system, but that leaves you potentially liable for the loan." "What kind of liability are we talking about?" "If they default, the lender could come after you for the full amount plus interest and penalties. It could affect your credit score, your ability to get loans yourself, possibly even impact your job if your position requires financial clearance or bonding." My head throbbed with the magnitude of what my parents had done. All those years of putting family first, of helping them manage their finances, of believing we were working together toward stability, and this was how they repaid me, by putting my financial future at risk without even asking. "What would you recommend?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Honestly, document everything right now. Download all evidence of the forgery, then contact the lender directly and inform them you did not authorize your signature. They'll have procedures for fraud claims." "But Kim," she paused, her voice gentling, "this will almost certainly destroy your relationship with your parents." I looked at the photos Brooke had sent, my birthday decorations repurposed for her special night, while I sat alone in my apartment, my name forged on a predatory loan document. The relationship I thought we had was already an illusion. I had been clinging to the hope of parental love and approval that had never truly existed. "I think that relationship is already over," I said quietly. "They just don't know it yet." As I hung up, a new text from Brooke lit up my phone screen. Another photo, this time of a extravagant dessert arrangement with the caption, "Carson's dad talking investment opportunities with dad this night is perfect." Perfect indeed. While they celebrated potential windfalls from their new connections, I was left dealing with the financial time bomb they had planted in my name. I stared at the banking portal, at the scheduled mortgage payment due in 3 days, at the loan document bearing my forged signature, and something cold and determined settled in my chest. If they wanted to play games with financial security, perhaps it was time they learned what that really meant. I barely slept that night, my mind cycling through shock, hurt, anger, and finally resolve. By morning, I had made my decision. I wouldn't file identity theft charges against my parents, at least not yet. The public humiliation and potential criminal charges would destroy them completely, and despite everything, some small part of me couldn't bring myself to do that. But I couldn't let their actions stand without consequences either. They needed to understand the seriousness of what they had done, both financially and emotionally. I called Amanda again, this time to consult on a more nuanced approach. "I don't want to pursue criminal charges," I explained. "But I need to protect myself and make them realize what they've done." "I figured you might say that," Amanda replied with a sigh. "Family complications are always the hardest. Let me think." We discussed options for nearly an hour. Amanda helped me understand exactly what steps I needed to take to protect myself financially, without necessarily escalating to legal action against my parents. First, document everything she advised. Download statements, take screenshots, save that loan document. Then draft a formal letter to the lender disavowing the signature and requesting removal as guarantor. "Will that be enough to protect me?" I asked. "It creates a paper trail showing you acted promptly once you discovered the fraud." "That's important. But there's still risk involved if you don't file official charges." By the end of our conversation, I had a clear plan. I would protect myself legally while giving my parents one chance to make things right. One chance to acknowledge what they'd done and take responsibility before I took more drastic measures. First, I meticulously documented everything, creating secure, digital, and physical copies of all evidence. Then, I drafted the formal letter to the lender, stating clearly that my signature had been used without authorization and requesting immediate removal from the loan agreement. Next came the most crucial step. I systematically removed my access and control from all their financial accounts, but not before downloading comprehensive records of every transaction, every missed payment, and every notice they had ignored. I needed this evidence not just for potential legal protection, but also to confront them with the reality of their situation. Before finalizing my withdrawal from their accounts, I made one significant change to their banking portal. The automatic mortgage payment I had set up months ago, scheduled to process in 3 days, was canceled. Not delayed, not rescheduled, canceled completely. The mortgage payment was substantial, over $3,000, and I knew they didn't have the funds readily available to make it manually, especially after their extravagant spending on Brooke's special dinner. They would receive an automated notification of the cancellation, but knowing my parents' habits of ignoring financial alerts, they likely wouldn't notice until the payment failed to process. By that point, they would already be in default, triggering late fees and potentially a notice from the bank. Nothing that would immediately threaten their home, but enough to create a very real scare. It was a calculated risk. The missed payment would impact their already damaged credit score, but one missed payment wouldn't lead to foreclosure. It would, however, give them a taste of the financial consequences they had been so cavalierly dismissing while relying on me to keep their house of cards from collapsing. As I completed these steps, my phone rang. It was Brooke again. "Hey, sis, quick favor," she said without preamble. "I'm at dinner with Carson's family at the Lakeside Grill, and Mom and Dad's card just got declined. So embarrassing. Can you transfer some money to their account, like right now?" The audacity was breathtaking. After everything they had done, they expected me to bail them out again without even a direct request from them. They had sent Brooke to do their dirty work. "Their card was declined," I repeated, feigning concern, while logging into the account I could still view but no longer control. Sure enough, there was the transaction attempt at the Lakeside Grill, a restaurant where entrees started at $50. That's strange. What did Mom and Dad say about it? "They're in the bathroom freaking out," Brooke whispered. "Dad said to call you because you handle their banking stuff. Can you fix it? Carson's dad is offering to pay, and it's humiliating." I could hear the panic in her voice, the fear that her carefully cultivated image of prosperity was crumbling in front of the very people she was trying to impress. Any other time, I would have immediately transferred funds to save them from embarrassment. I had done it countless times before, but not today. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Brooke," I said calmly. "What do you mean you can't? Just transfer the money." Her whisper had turned harsh. "I've removed myself from their accounts. I no longer have authorization to make transfers. They'll need to handle it themselves." "Are you serious you're doing this now? Is this because of your stupid birthday party?" The dismissive way she referenced my feelings, reducing them to a stupid birthday party rather than a pattern of disrespect and betrayal that had culminated in actual fraud, only strengthened my resolve. "This isn't about the party, Brooke. This is about boundaries and consequences. Tell Mom and Dad to check their email. I've sent them important information they need to review immediately." "You're being ridiculous," she hissed. "I can't believe you're sabotaging my relationship with Carson over something so petty." "Goodbye, Brooke. Give Mom and Dad my message." I ended the call and immediately blocked her number, then did the same for my parents. They would have to read the detailed email I had sent explaining exactly what I had discovered and what steps I had taken to protect myself. The email concluded with a simple statement: "I have canceled my role as your financial manager. You might soon discover I've canceled something else, too." Let them wonder what else I had done. Let them feel a fraction of the uncertainty and betrayal I had experienced. I spent the rest of the day preparing for the inevitable confrontation. I knew once they realized what I had done, they would show up at my door alternating between anger and pleading. They would accuse me of overreacting, of being vindictive, of not understanding their struggles. I needed to be ready to stand my ground, to make them understand that their actions had real consequences, both financially and for our relationship. Amanda checked in with me that evening. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Better than expected," I replied, surprising myself with the truth of it. Despite the upheaval, despite knowing the storm that was coming, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of constantly managing my parents' financial messes, of always being available to bail them out while receiving nothing but dismissal in return, had been lifted. "Just remember you have options if they don't respond reasonably," she reminded me. "And Kim, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. It's long overdue." As I prepared for bed that night, I felt a strange sense of calm. Tomorrow would bring chaos when my parents discovered what I had done. But for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't responsible for fixing their problems. That responsibility was back where it belonged with them. The thought was terrifying, but also strangely liberating. I had canceled more than just a mortgage payment. I had canceled a dysfunctional pattern that had defined our relationship for decades. Now it was time to see if anything healthier could grow in its place. 3 days passed in silence. My parents and Brooke attempted to call repeatedly, but their numbers remained blocked. They left voicemails that grew increasingly frantic, then angry, then pleading, but I didn't respond. They needed to read my email and understand the gravity of what they had done before I would engage with them again. On the morning the mortgage payment was due to process, I received a notification from the banking system I was still subscribed to as a backup contact. As expected, the payment had failed. Insufficient funds. Within an hour, my work phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I had anticipated they might try to reach me this way, once they realized I was serious about maintaining the boundary. "Kimberly Walker speaking," I answered professionally. "Kimberly, it's your father." His voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "We need to talk right now." "Did you read my email?" Dad-I asked calmly. "Yes, we read your ridiculous email full of accusations and threats," he snapped. "Is this really how you want to handle a simple misunderstanding, by potentially making us lose our home?" "A simple misunderstanding," I repeated, keeping my voice level despite my rising anger. "You forged my signature on a loan document." "That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud. We were going to tell you about that," he backpedaled. "It was just a temporary measure, until some investments come through. You wouldn't actually be liable." "That's not how co-signing works, Dad. And you know it. I work in finance, remember?" There was a pause then. My mother's voice came on the line, obviously on speakerphone now. "Kimberly, sweetie, we're so sorry if you felt hurt about the birthday celebration. We'll make it up to you. But this mortgage payment, the bank says it was canceled. They're charging us late fees we can't afford right now." The lack of acknowledgement about the forged loan document spoke volumes. They were still trying to minimize what they'd done, focusing instead on the more immediate financial crisis of the missed mortgage payment. "I canceled the automatic payment," I confirmed. "Just like you canceled my birthday without a second thought. Actions have consequences." "You did what my father exploded. How could you do this to your own family? We could lose our house." "One missed payment won't cause foreclosure," I said calmly. "But it's interesting that you're more concerned about one mortgage payment than about committing identity theft against your daughter." "We were desperate," my mother interjected. "The refinancing you arranged last year helped, but our expenses have increased. We needed that loan to stay afloat." "Then you should have discussed it with me honestly instead of forging my signature," I replied. "And you shouldn't have been spending hundreds of dollars on wine and fancy dinners for Brooke and her boyfriend if you were truly desperate." "That was an investment in our future," my father insisted. "Carson's family has connections that could solve all our financial problems." "So you're banking your financial recovery on Brooke's relationship with a man she just started dating. That's your plan." The silence that followed told me they hadn't thought much beyond the immediate goal of impressing Carson's family. They truly believed that somehow this relationship would solve their financial problems, as if they were characters in a Jane Austen novel rather than adults in modern America. "The mortgage payment," my mother finally said, her voice small. "Can you reinstate it, please? We don't have the funds right now to cover it." "I've removed myself from your accounts," I reminded them. "I no longer have the authority to manage your payments. That's your responsibility now. But the late fees will just make everything worse. And if we miss another payment, then I suggest you start being more careful with your spending," I said firmly. "Cancel the premium cable package you don't need. Stop dining at expensive restaurants. Return the new car you bought Brooke while claiming you couldn't afford to fix the leaking roof. Start acting like adults who understand financial consequences. We need your help, Kimberly, my father said, his voice hard. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, by putting our home at risk. The sheer audacity of his statement momentarily robbed me of speech. After everything they had done for me, they had consistently prioritized. Brooke dismissed my feelings, canceled my birthday celebration without remorse, used my decorations and food budget for their own purposes, and committed fraud using my name. And somehow I was the ungrateful one. I'm going to say this once I finally responded, my voice steady despite the emotions churning within me. I have spent years helping you manage your finances, setting up payment systems, and bailing you out of one crisis after another. In return, you have taken me for granted, dismissed my feelings, and now committed fraud that could have serious consequences for my financial future. I took a deep breath before continuing. I've sent a formal letter to the lender disavowing the signature on the loan document. They will be investigating the fraud. I haven't yet told them who forged my signature, but I will if necessary to protect myself. You wouldn't, my mother gasped. We're your parents. Parents don't commit identity theft against their children, I replied. As for the mortgage payment, you have 24 hours to either make the payment yourselves or meet with me in person to discuss a resolution. Your choice. Meet where my father demanded. My apartment. 7 o'clock tonight. Come prepared to have an honest conversation about everything, including the loan fraud and your financial situation. And come alone, no Brooke. I ended the call before they could respond, then turned off my work phone. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in dealing with my family, I felt strong. I had set a boundary and held firm despite their attempts to manipulate me with guilt and obligation. The rest of the workday passed in a blur. I had difficulty focusing on financial analyses when my own family drama involved such financial irresponsibility. Several times my personal phone lit up with texts from unknown numbers, Brooke or my parents trying to reach me from friends' phones, no doubt. I ignored them all. At precisely 7 that evening, my apartment buzzer sounded. I buzzed my parents up without speaking, then waited by my door. When I opened it, I was shocked by their appearance. Both looked haggard with dark circles under their eyes. My mother had been crying. My father's expression was a mixture of anger and fear. Come in, I said, formally stepping aside. No hugs, no pleasantries. This wasn't a social visit. They entered awkwardly, perching on the edge of my sofa as if afraid to get too comfortable. Good. They shouldn't be comfortable right now. Would you like something to drink? I offered, basic hospitality overriding my anger. They both declined, and an uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The bank called again, my father finally said. They're threatening to report the missed payment to the credit bureaus. Our credit score can't take another hit. I see, I replied, keeping my expression neutral. And what about the fraudulent loan document with my forged signature? Has the lender contacted you about that yet? They exchanged glances, and I knew immediately that they had indeed heard from the lender. They sent an email, my mother admitted. They're launching an investigation. As they should, I said. Identity theft is a serious crime. We never meant to put you at risk, my father insisted. We were just desperate for a temporary solution. We were going to pay it back before you ever knew about it. With what money? I asked bluntly. You're already missing mortgage payments. You've maxed out your credit cards. Where exactly was this magical repayment coming from? Another uncomfortable glance between them. We were hoping, my mother began hesitantly. Hoping what? That Brooke's boyfriend would solve all your financial problems. That's not a plan. That's a fantasy. My father's face flushed with anger. You don't understand our situation. We have appearances to maintain, connections to nurture. You can't build relationships with important people if you look desperate. So you'd rather actually be desperate while pretending otherwise. I shook my head in disbelief. Dad, this isn't sustainable. You're 3 missed payments away from foreclosure proceedings. You have unsecured debt at predatory interest rates. And instead of acknowledging reality, you're spending money you don't have on wine and dinner parties to impress strangers. My mother began to cry softly, but I hardened my heart against the familiar manipulation. Her tears had often ended discussions that needed to happen, prevented accountabilities that needed to be faced. Not this time. The thing is, I continued, none of this had to happen. I've been helping you manage your finances for over a year. I set up payment systems specifically to prevent missed payments. I created budgets that would have kept you solvent. But you chose to ignore all of that because it didn't allow for the lifestyle you think you deserve. And now you're punishing us, my father said bitterly. Your own parents, over a birthday party. This has never been just about the birthday party, I replied evenly. The party was simply the final straw. This is about a lifetime of being treated as less important than Brooke, about having my feelings dismissed and my contributions taken for granted, and ultimately about having my financial future put at risk because you forged my signature on a loan document. I let that sink in before continuing. The question now is, what are you going to do about it? My parents looked at each other helplessly, and in that moment I saw something I had never seen before, the facade crumbling. The careful image of successful suburbanites they had maintained for decades was collapsing under the weight of financial reality. We don't know, my mother whispered. We can't make the mortgage payment. We don't have the money. And the loan company is freezing the funds we received due to the fraud investigation, my father added. We're in serious trouble, Kimberly. For the first time, I heard genuine fear in his voice. Not manipulation, not anger, but real fear. They were finally facing the consequences of their financial decisions, and they were terrified. Just as this realization was setting in, a pounding on my apartment door made us all jump. Kimberly, I know they're in there. Open up right now. Brooke's voice, shrill with anger, echoed through the door. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Brooke burst in face, flushed with fury. What have you done? She demanded. Carson's family thinks we're broke. They canceled our dinner plans tonight because they're reconsidering the relationship. This is all your fault. Brooke, my mother said weakly, this isn't the time. When is the time, Mom? After we lose the house, after you have to sell your car. After my entire future is ruined because my sister decided to throw a temper tantrum over a stupid party. I simply watched as Brooke's tirade continued, noting how even now, in the midst of a genuine financial crisis, her primary concern was her social standing and relationship prospects. The family dynamics that had shaped my entire life were playing out in my living room like a tragic theater production. Are you finished? I asked when she paused for breath. No, I'm not finished. You need to fix this. Make the mortgage payment, tell the loan company it was all a misunderstanding. Fix it. I can't fix it, Brooke, I said calmly. And more importantly, I won't. This isn't my mess to clean up. It's theirs. I gestured to our parents. And yours, since you've been happily benefiting from their financial irresponsibility. What is that supposed to mean? She demanded. It means the new car they bought you when they were already missing mortgage payments. The expensive dinners. The designer clothes. All while they were drowning in debt and forging my signature on loan documents. Brooke turned to our parents' confusion, replacing some of the anger on her face. What is she talking about? What loan? And that's when I realized Brooke didn't know. Despite being the favorite, despite being prioritized in every way, our parents had kept their financial reality hidden even from her. They had maintained the illusion of prosperity and stability for everyone, creating a house of cards that was now collapsing around us all. You don't know, do you? I said to Brooke, watching the confusion play across her face. They've been lying to you too. Mom, Dad, Brooke turned to our parents, who suddenly looked even more defeated. What's going on? My father sighed heavily, seeming to age 10 years in that moment. We're in financial trouble, Brooke. Serious trouble. What kind of trouble? She demanded. We've been struggling since the housing crash last year. My mother explained, her voice small. The refinancing that Kimberly arranged helped, but we haven't been as careful with spending as we should have been. We're 3 months from bankruptcy, my father admitted, the words seeming to physically pain him. The house could go into foreclosure if we miss another payment. Brooke stared at them in disbelief. That's impossible. We just had that fancy dinner for Carson's family. You bought me a car. We went to wine country last month. All on borrowed money or credit cards, I interjected. Money they don't have. Money they can't repay. Is this true? Brooke asked, her voice suddenly young and vulnerable in a way I hadn't heard since she was a child. Our mother nodded, tears streaming down her face now. We didn't want you to worry. We thought we could fix it before things got too bad. By forging my signature on a loan document, I added, making sure this critical detail wasn't overlooked in the emotional moment. What Brooke turned to me then, back to our parents. You forged Kim's signature. My father's expression hardened defensively. It was just temporary. We were going to pay it back. With what money, Brooke and I asked simultaneously then, looked at each other in surprise. For the first time, I felt a flicker of connection with my sister. Perhaps she wasn't as complicit in their favoritism as I had always assumed. Perhaps she too had been manipulated, just in different ways. That's identity theft, Brooke said slowly. That's a crime. You could go to jail. Nobody's going to jail, my father snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. Not if they make this right, I agreed. But they need to understand the seriousness of what they've done. To me and to our family's future. Brooke sank onto the couch, all the anger seeming to drain out of her. I had no idea, she said quietly. I thought we were fine. I thought when you said money was tight, it just meant we needed to be a little careful, not that we were on the verge of bankruptcy. They didn't want you to know, I explained. They've been maintaining the appearance of financial stability at all costs. Literally. But why, she asked, looking at our parents. Why keep spending money on me on fancy dinners, on trips we can't afford? Our mother reached for her hand. We wanted you to have opportunities, connections, a chance at a better life than we could provide. By committing fraud, Brooke shook her head in disbelief. By canceling Kim's birthday to impress Carson's family with money we don't have, how was that supposed to help anyone? A heavy silence fell over the room. It was the first time I could remember Brooke defending me against our parents' favoritism. The first time she seemed to truly see the pattern that had defined our family dynamic for decades. We thought if you married into the Millington family, all our problems would be solved. Our father finally admitted the absurdity of the plan, evident in his tone. We were desperate. So I was, what? A meal ticket. A solution to your financial problems. Brooke's voice rose again. Did you ever think about what I wanted? About who I wanted to be with? We thought we were helping your future, our mother insisted, by lying to me, by making me think everything was fine when it wasn't. Brooke stood up again, pacing the small confines of my living room. Do you know how humiliating it was when Carson's father offered to pay for dinner because your card was declined? When Carson called today to say his parents thought our family was financially unstable and he needed to reconcile our relationships. We're so sorry, sweetheart, our mother began, but Brooke cut her off. Don't sweetheart me right now. I'm not a child. I deserve to know the truth. We all did, I added quietly. Brooke turned to me and I saw something new in her expression. Not anger or competition, but a dawning realization. They've been playing us against each other our whole lives, haven't they? She said. Making me the favorite, making you the responsible one, keeping us both in the dark about different things. It was a moment of clarity I hadn't expected, least of all from Brooke. She had always seemed content with her role as the golden child, never questioning the unequal treatment or showing awareness of how it affected me. I think they have, I agreed. Maybe not intentionally at first, but it became a pattern. A toxic pattern, she said firmly. And I've been part of it. I've taken advantage of it. She looked at me directly. I'm sorry, Kim, about your birthday. About a lot of things. The apology, so unexpected and seemingly sincere, momentarily left me speechless. This wasn't how I had envisioned this confrontation going. I had expected more anger, more defensiveness, more of the same family dynamics that had always defined our interactions. Not this moment of honesty and vulnerability. Thank you, I finally managed. That means a lot. Our parents watched this exchange with bewildered expressions, as if unable to process this sudden alliance between their daughters. What happens now? Our father asked, bringing us back to the immediate crisis, the mortgage payment. I'll help you make the payment, I said, the decision crystallizing as I spoke. But there will be conditions. Anything, our mother said quickly. Whatever you want. First, you'll provide a signed statement acknowledging that you forged my signature on the loan document. I need this for my protection with the lender. They hesitated, but then nodded reluctantly. Second, you'll meet with a financial counselor, a real one, not Dad's golf buddy who gives investment tips. Someone who can help create a realistic budget and debt management plan. We can do that, our father agreed. Third, you'll sell the new car you bought Brooke and use the money to start paying down your highest interest debt. I glanced at Brooke, expecting resistance, but she nodded. It's the right thing to do. I can use my old car or public transportation. And finally, I continued, we all agree to family therapy to address the patterns that got us here. The favoritism, the financial dishonesty, all of it. This was met with uncomfortable silence. Those are my conditions, I said firmly. Take them or leave them. My parents exchanged a long look, decades of marriage, allowing them to communicate without words. Finally, my father turned back to me. We agree to your terms, he said formally. And, Kimberly, we're sorry. For everything. We never meant for things to get this bad. I know you didn't, I said, surprised, to find I actually believed them. They hadn't set out to hurt me or create this financial disaster. They had simply made one poor decision after another, prioritizing appearances over reality, until the situation had spiraled beyond their control. I'm sorry too, Brooke said, and to my further surprise, there were tears in her eyes. I've been awful to you. Entitled and selfish. I didn't realize. I didn't want to see what was happening. It was easier to accept being the favorite than to question why I was being treated differently. She took a deep breath, before continuing, her voice breaking slightly. The truth is, I've always been jealous of you. You're so together, so competent. You have a real career, your own place, actual skills. I've just been coasting on looks and charm, letting Mom and Dad smooth my path. I don't even know who I am outside of being their golden child. The confession struck me like a physical blow. All these years I had envied Brooke's favored status, the ease with which she moved through life, never imagining she might envy my independence and achievements in return. We've all been trapped in roles that weren't serving us, I said gently. Maybe now we can try something different. My mother reached out tentatively, taking one of my hands and one of Brooke's. I want that, she said. I want us to be a real family, not just pretending everything's fine when it isn't. It won't be easy, I cautioned. There's a lot of hurt to work through, a lot of financial mess to clean up. But we'll do it together, Brooke said with more maturity than I had ever heard from her. All of us. My father nodded, his expression solemn. No more lies. No more favoritism. No more living beyond our means to keep up appearances. I wasn't naive enough to believe everything would change overnight. Decades of dysfunctional patterns couldn't be erased with one emotional conversation. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt a glimmer of hope that something healthier might be possible for our family. I'll make the mortgage payment tomorrow, I said, and then we start fresh, with truth and boundaries and mutual respect. As they prepared to leave, Brooke hung back, letting our parents go ahead to the elevator. I meant what I said, she told me quietly. I'm sorry for being part of the problem for so long, and I'm sorry about your birthday. When this financial crisis is stabilized, I want to throw you the celebration you deserved, a real one that's actually about you. I'd like that I said surprised, to find I meant it. She hesitated, then gave me a quick, awkward hug before hurrying after our parents. It wasn't a magical transformation, but it was a start. A crack in the wall of resentment and competition that had separated us for most of our lives. As I closed my apartment door, I felt lighter somehow, despite the complications that still lay ahead. By canceling that mortgage payment, I had set in motion a chain of events that forced my family to face truths we had all been avoiding for too long. Sometimes you have to break a dysfunctional system to build something healthier in its place. 1 year later, I stood in the kitchen of my apartment, putting the finishing touches on a homemade birthday cake. My 31st birthday was nothing like I had envisioned my 30th would be, but in many ways it was better. The doorbell rang, and I smiled as I wiped my hands on a dish towel. My family was right on time, a small miracle given our history. Happy birthday, they called in unison as I opened the door. My mother held a tastefully wrapped gift. My father carried a bottle of mid-priced wine, not the overly expensive kind he would have chosen a year ago to impress people, and Brooke followed with a bouquet of my favorite flowers. Come in, I welcomed them, accepting hugs that felt more genuine than any we had shared in years. The past 12 months hadn't been easy. The mortgage payment incident had indeed been the catalyst for major changes in our family, but change rarely comes without pain. True to their word, my parents had signed the statement acknowledging the forged loan document, which allowed me to resolve the situation with the lender without pressing charges. They had sold Brooke's new car and used the proceeds to begin paying down their highest interest debt. They had met with a financial counselor who created a realistic budget and debt management plan that they had, with occasional slips, largely followed. Most importantly, we had started family therapy. Those sessions had been grueling at times, exposing patterns and wounds that had festered beneath the surface for decades. There had been tears, anger, defensiveness, and more than once the temptation to give up and retreat to our familiar dysfunctional roles. But we had persisted, and slowly, painfully began building something new. My father had taken a part-time job to supplement his income, swallowing his pride in a way I would never have thought possible before the crisis. My mother had sold many of her designer items on consignment, using the money to contribute to their debt repayment. Their house was no longer in danger of foreclosure, though they were considering downsizing to something more affordable once the market improved. Brooke had perhaps changed the most. After the relationship with Carson inevitably collapsed under the weight of financial reality and family drama, she had enrolled in community college, pursuing a degree in early childhood education. She had discovered a genuine passion for working with children, something she might never have explored if she had continued on the path of seeking financial security through marriage. "The cake looks amazing," my mother said, setting her gift on the counter. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "I wanted to," I replied. "Besides, baking has become my stress relief during busy work weeks." "Speaking of work," my father interjected, "how's the promotion going? Are they treating you right?" The genuine interest in his question still surprised me sometimes. Before, my career had been something he acknowledged only superficially, never engaging with the details or expressing real curiosity about my professional life. "It's challenging but good," I told him. "The team I'm managing is coming together nicely." "You always were a natural leader," Brooke said, arranging the flowers in a vase she found under the sink. "Remember how you used to organize all the neighborhood kids for those elaborate pretend games?" I laughed. "I was bossy, you mean?" "Maybe a little," she conceded with a smile. "But in the best way." We moved to the living room, with drinks falling into conversation that flowed more easily than it had in my entire adult life. There were still awkward moments, still old patterns that occasionally surfaced, but we were learning to recognize and redirect them rather than falling back into toxic dynamics. "We have something to tell you," my mother said during a lull in the conversation. "We've made a decision about the house." "You're selling," I guessed. We had discussed this possibility in recent months as they continued working on their financial recovery. My father nodded. "We found a smaller place closer to town. Lower mortgage, lower maintenance costs, and we can pay off the remaining debt with the equity from the sale." "That's fantastic," I said, genuinely pleased for them. "It's a smart financial move." "We wouldn't have had the courage to do it without everything that happened last year," my mother admitted. As painful as it was, that wake-up call was necessary. "I'm proud of you both," I told them sincerely. "I know how hard change can be, especially at this stage of life." "We're proud of you too," my father said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just for your professional success, but for having the strength to hold us accountable when we were heading for disaster. You could have walked away and no one would have blamed you." "I considered it," I admitted. "But despite everything, we're family. I wanted us to have a chance at a healthier relationship." "Well, I for one am grateful you didn't give up on us," Brooke said, raising her glass in a toast. "To Kimberly, not just for her birthday, but for having the courage to cancel that mortgage payment and start us on a better path." We clinked glasses, the moment both lighthearted and profound. By taking that drastic action a year ago, I had indeed canceled more than just a payment. I had canceled toxic family patterns, unrealistic expectations, financial denial, and my own complicity in maintaining a dysfunctional system. After dinner, as we enjoyed the birthday cake, my parents insisted I open my gift. Inside the simple wrapping was a leather-bound journal with my name embossed on the cover. "We thought you might want to write about your journey," my mother explained. Not just the financial aspects, but the emotional ones too. Your therapist mentioned writing has been helpful for you. The thoughtfulness of the gift, so aligned with my actual interests, rather than what they thought I should want, touched me deeply. There's something else too, my father said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. This isn't a gift exactly, but we wanted you to have it today. Inside was a document showing the final payment confirmation for the fraudulent loan they had taken out in my name. They had prioritized paying it off completely, removing the financial liability that had been placed on me without consent. Thank you, I said, emotion making my voice unsteady. This means a lot. We still have work to do, my mother acknowledged, both financially and as a family. But we're committed to continuing the journey. One step at a time, I agreed. After they left, I sat alone in my apartment, reflecting on the extraordinary changes of the past year. By standing up for myself, by refusing to continue enabling financial irresponsibility and emotional manipulation, I had not only protected my own future, but potentially saved my family from complete financial ruin. More importantly, I had helped create space for a new kind of family dynamic to emerge, one based on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care, rather than appearance, favoritism, and denial. The journey wasn't over. We would still have disagreements, still occasionally fall back into old patterns. Financial recovery would take years, not months. Trust once broken required consistent effort to rebuild. But as I placed the journal on my bookshelf and filed away the loan document, I felt profound gratitude for the crisis that had forced us all to change. Sometimes the most painful experiences create the opportunity for the most meaningful growth. By canceling that mortgage payment a year ago, I had ultimately made room for something far more valuable to grow in its place: authentic family bonds based on truth rather than pretense, on mutual support rather than manipulation. In the end, the most important thing I had canceled wasn't a payment at all. It was the acceptance of being undervalued and taken for granted. By refusing to continue in that role, I had given us all the chance to discover who we could be, both individually and as a family, when we stopped living in denial and started facing reality together. Have you ever had to take a drastic action to change an unhealthy pattern in your life? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most necessary transformations. If my story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to see more content like this, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage in your own path toward healthier relationships.